This is a rib cage from an elk, and I went up to a small butcher north of Taos and he gave me lots of wonderful things like a cow's head and two of these beautiful rib cages and some goat heads and various other things. So anyway, I think this is a beautiful form, and it's also food. And so I am filling in holes, shaping it a little bit, although it has its own natural shape. It dried. This is like turkey. So it dried just outside in the sun and the air. And now I'm refining it so I can make a mold of it, cast a model, and have it cast in, I'm thinking maybe bronze. Growing up in the backwoods, really backwoods in North Dakota, right under the Canadian border. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason for it, but I was just always interested in the natural history things. I mean, natural science, and when I lived in such a small town that when I was a little kid, I could take my strainer and bucket and go down to the creek. It was 3 blocks from my house, and you know, catch minnows all day, or catch frogs and take them home sometimes, or let them all go at the end of the day. I loved animals, so I never hurt anything, and I, you know, never kill anything, and would stop all the neighborhood boys from killing frogs and things like that. But I was fabulously interested in dissection and how things worked. And I'm not just saying, I can understand that other people think that the process that I work with is grisly and kind of gross. Mm-hmm. And I understand that people feel that way, but I so don't. It's just not that at all to me. I mean, I've skinned hundreds of animals in my life, and it's always been, I mean, with great respect, really, and it's always been so rich for me. It involves all your senses. I mean, some would think that's not so good, but you're totally engaged. I've never been more present than when I'm working with this kind of stuff. They didn't have room. When my kids were little, poor kids. I did all this when they were growing up. And they tell horror stories of, you know, going into the freezer to get a popsicle or something, and that pig's head falls out. Or and this pig, I would like to, it's going to take a lot of work, but I would like to, I have to, you know, really work with it to make a mold that will come off specifically so they can make a mold for porcelain. Mm-hmm. And I think it could be really beautiful in porcelain.
His eyeballs still in there?
Yeah, his eyeballs are in there. But they prepare these, see, I would rather just get them from a local butcher, mm-hmm. because in a bigger place they prepare them to cook, so when they come they're totally ready to cook. So they cut the skin off around their eyes, they do things that I don't like. I just like everything there so I can work with it and make molds. First I have to thaw it out so I can really start seeing how it's going to position. But I want to accentuate its beauty, and then the material that it's cast in should accentuate that even more, and then the museum mounting should do the trick. You can't just have the pretty cutlet on your plate and the animal, the whole animal, being off behind walls and in stockyards and plants, where we've just become so far removed from our food. I think it's not healthy, and that's basically kind of why I do this work. It's a real interesting exploration to me of life and death, and without all of these layers that we manage to put between us and our real food source. And as I prepare it for a mold, I won't lose any of the original, shape of the pig. But I'll fill in undercuts, and I'll do things that'll make it even more streamlined and stuff. And I'm glad I'm looking at it now, because I really have to think about this overnight and everything too. And I've learned more than I've ever learned from any book that I could read on the subject. I can't even begin to tell you what I've learned from exploring the insides of animals and reptiles and things, and it's really us.
So what is museum mounting?
Oh, okay. It's okay, like if you go to a museum and you see maybe it's a pre-Columbian little figure or something, and somebody has it's usually metal and painted black, so it's very unobtrusive, and so there's a base and maybe a metal rod coming up with it takes the form of the piece, like to be as like I said, as unobtrusive as possible, but will elevate the piece and present it and keep it safe, So rods might come up, and maybe if there's a place under the arm where a piece can go, whatever, just to... So each piece is different. But what it tends to do, which I like, is elevate the thing and make it special, and take it out of the realm of base and ordinary. Even if it was, whatever it is, was base and ordinary, in its original time and form. So it makes it, gives it importance and makes it special. And that's what I want to do with this food. We've stopped seeing our food. In fact, we don't like to look at it in its natural fundamental form. So we do it in the dark, in hiding. In fact, most of our food is processed so completely that no one could recognize the animal or plant that it basically came from. But I think if we're going to be full human beings, life is this, it's not just good and evil, it's this. And to ignore any part of it, I think is, you don't have to like it, but to ignore it, liking it and ignoring it are two different things.